Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Reputation Igniter Podcast. We are so pumped to have you here. Obviously, as always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, make sure that you are in the loop for anything that we are dropping here and making sure that we're just sharing awesome insights for you. Obviously, we always bring on the industry experts. That's why we got J-Dub Moneymaker, also known as Jason Walker in real life when you meet him on the street. Kind of here presenting, talking from Masters of the Hustle, HVAC edition. And we're just excited to have you here. Thanks, Jason, for being on.
Absolutely, man. Well, first off, it's an honor to be on your podcast. So thanks for reaching out and asking me. And, I'm excited to drop a lot of value, hopefully, to the listeners that are out there. And, my goal and my mission, right, is to bring everyone to the top of the mountain with me, because as a leader, I hate the saying it's lonely on top of the mountain, because it means that you failed to do your job. So everyone that's listening, hopefully y'all get some great nuggets out of this, and I see you at the top, and I'm going to help any way that I can in the next hour that we're recording.
I love that, man. And I think that's what you talk about, right? Is that Spartan ethos, right? I think, if anybody's watched that movie 300, right? Like none of those guys were doing it alone, right? It was them as a phalanx going in there and kind of wrecking Thermopylae and all the other places that they did some damage. So appreciate you being on. And again, guys, this podcast is really for you as an HVAC owner. We just see in the mainstream media that oftentimes entrepreneurs are demonized, and we just want you to know that, like, hey, you're a celebrated member of the community. Without you guys forging and going out on your own, building a business, employing people in the local community, and then giving service to that local community, nothing really happens. And so we just want to say thank you for all the work that you do. And we're just excited to share your stories and also bring on industry experts like Jason here to just give you guys some additional insights to help that business grow strong and vibrant, regardless of what the economy is doing outside, because we know that you can and you will. So with that, Jason, let's jump in, man. I know you've got this whole ethos, and again, it's HVAC, Masters of the Hustle. I want to make sure that I say that right. And you have this idea of the Spartan warrior and bringing that out of people. Maybe you can give me just like a quick kind of 5-minute kind of, there to hear story. How did you get here? And why in the world are you doing this? Sales sucks. We all know that. Nobody wants to do sales, right? But nothing happens until somebody sells something. So how did it happen, man?
I know. Why do I keep beating my head against the wall over and over? I mean, if you look up the definition of insanity, right, it's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. No, I started this journey in HVAC 15 years ago, Chris. And prior to this, I was a police officer. I was laid off from the budget cut in California.
Oh, wow.
They're doing a lot of layoffs. And so defining moments is what I talk about in my life. And this is one of those defining moments where you kind of look at yourself at that moment and you feel discouraged and you feel like hopeless, and there's maybe not another opportunity, right? And so I took that defining moment, and my father-in-law, he said, boy, you got to do something, And he was the operations manager of an HVAC company. And what they were doing at that time is they were building a indoor air quality duct cleaning division. So my first job into HVAC was a duct cleaner. So it was cleaning the ducts, breathing all that dead skin, all that nasty stuff. And so that was a good way to introduce myself. But here's the thing. When they brought me on to the company, they were only doing maybe 1-2 duct cleanings a week, maybe 3 tops, right? So there was a lot of downtime. So my downtime was actually being the gopher. And so I was also the warehouse guy. So I was the shop cleaner. I was the guy that installed trucks were lined up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm throwing everything away, sweeping it, replenishing, restocking to make sure that my install guys were going to be successful, right? Being ready for their day, going to be efficient. And so as I continue, fast forward 6 months, I was able to grow this department where we started off doing maybe 3 tops a week to now we're doing 2 to 3 a day, and we're booked out like 3 weeks. And I got multiple different team members and everyone doing it. And so at this time, another defining moment, I felt like there was a lot of opportunity in the industry and the trades, but also an opportunity in this company. So then I went from wanting to learn some more of the trade. So I went into install, started as an install helper, worked my way to a lead installer. As an installer, then I was promoted to what we call a warehouse manager, a parts manager. Yeah. So I did all the ordering, I did all the POs, I closed them. And what happened at that time was pretty big. And so, you know, your listeners, some might be living paycheck to paycheck right now, might be in the rat race, right? And that was me. I was in the rat race. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was living over my needs. And I was making about $55,000 salary. And all of a sudden, the truck that I had got repoed not just once, but twice. And the second time it got repoed, imagine this, Chris, in my work parking lot. So now I have the office lady come into my office and saying, hey, Jason, you might want to go ahead and go up front. They're hooking your car up. So now you talk about all your dirty laundry, all your personal business unfolding at work now, right? Yeah. Things that you're trying to hide in the closet and everything. And now it's just being unfolded. And also at this time, remember, I was engaged. So I was felling my future wife. And I had to take a quick look at my life, and I had to say I had to make a change quick. So I went to the owner and I said, hey, give me the opportunity, because he let go of a comfort advisor. I said, give me that opportunity that week. And so it wasn't like he was like, oh yeah, Jason, let's go ahead. Let's get you out there, boy. Right. I didn't know anything. So it took him about 2 weeks to really contemplate it. And then he pulled me in his office on a Thursday and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and send you home. And I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? Right? Like, that's in the back of my head. Like, why am I going home? And he said, you know what? We're going to take an opportunity on you. We're going to fly you to Airtime St. Louis tomorrow, Friday. You're going to do the training throughout the week. And you're going to come back and you're going to be a comfort advisor on one. There was one clause in it, right? Yeah. The clause was that the sales manager was going to come with me. And anytime there was a role play, I had to be the first one to raise my hand. Okay. So now I go to St. Louis. I'm at the Drury Inn Hotel in their conference room with 100 sales professionals. And here's the crazy thing, Chris. I thought I was in their beginners class. Okay. Now I look at the workbook in front of me and it's Sales Experts Part 2. So now I'm looking around this, Drury Inn Hotel with 100 plus comfort advisors, and I'm like, my chest is pounding. I don't know anything. I know I'm going to have to role play every single time they ask it. Yeah. And so after the couple days, I did all the role playing. I'm so happy that they didn't record back then, because if the recordings were out, y'all would laugh. But again, defining moments, right? So I ended up going back to the company, and they've been in business for 32 years. And this is really, really where I set the trajectory of me in this industry of HVAC. Mm-hmm. And so this company never had a $2 million comfort advisor. This was probably about 8-9 years ago. And so I wanted to make a mission that I wanted to be the first $2 million comfort advisor in their operation. Mm-hmm. And so there was 8 months left of the calendar year. I ended up doing 2.2 million. I doubled my income. I was living very comfortable now. And then I'm always a student. I'm always learning. And then all of a sudden I meet another comfort advisor that did 2 million, but you know what? I made 125,000 off mine. He made 200,000 off his. So a defining moment right there. What I learned after I had a conversation with him is that I could work smarter, not harder. Okay. Now let me explain to your listeners what I mean by this. As a sales professional, okay, a lot of times when we sit in front of our clients, we sell the way that we purchase things. Okay. We sell with our own account. We sell with our own wallet. And so what was happening was I was selling with my beliefs, beliefs as of what was in my bank account, what I would take on for financing. So I was shooting myself in the foot, and I was giving away 5 years, 0% to everyone with it, which is a 15%, 20% merchant fee for your business. Right. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand the business side of it. So even though I was starting at 10% commission, again, remember, I'm making 55,000. I doubled my income. I was okay with making 6%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
at that time, once I learned that I could work smarter, not harder, run the same opportunities, offer a 12 years at 12.9%, and offer those because people will purchase that, and not start with my big, my big ticket, my big arsenal is what I say. I want to keep that 0% in my back pocket just in case I need it. I never want to lead with it now, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so now, as I'm progressing, I've done well over 4 million as a comfort advisor. My last year as a comfort advisor was 5 years ago, and I did over 4 million. I had an average ticket of 19,500. A marketed call, I would close at 67%, and a tech turnover would be 72%. So now you fine tune your skills, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to different training events every single quarter. And now what they're doing is they're wanting information from me. Business owners are hearing these numbers and they're saying, "Hey, Chris, let's go to a steak dinner tonight. Hey, you know what? There's a basketball game. You want to go tonight, or a football game or baseball game?" And there was a want and there was a need. So 5 years ago, I said, "You know what? How do I reach more people instead of just going to these events?" Bam. That's when HVAC Masters of the Hustle was born 5 years ago.
Love it.
And when I created the podcast, I wanted to make sure that I made a promise and a commitment to myself and my listeners that I was going to be consistent. So I'm very prideful that in the 5 years I've been doing this, I've never missed one episode in 5 years. They're consistent every single week. They drop every single Monday.
Love it. Love it, man. Well, first off, thanks for your service as a police officer. That is no easy line of work either. And I think
No.
to go from being the guy that everybody's afraid of, right, to then being the guy who's just fetching stuff and looks like the young kid who doesn't know any better or has no other use, to just kind of rising through the ranks. I mean, that's it, right? I think you're also a great testament to hiring for personality, right? And then giving opportunities, right? And obviously, don't just hand any go for an opportunity to be a comfort advisor. Like let him kind of let him or her show a little bit of their worth, right? But I think so oftentimes we get jaded by thinking, let's just hire the ace, right? When really, and I've heard this time and time, especially from, other guests on my show, right? Is like, you kind of got to train that person, right? You got to be willing to invest in order for them to invest in your operation as well. So let's talk about that though. Like, obviously you've overcome a lot of these hurdles in the sales process, right? And there's constant refinement of that. And obviously you've got your own sort of process that you teach. What would you say in sort of your experience here in the last 5 years as you've been going out and helping these HVAC companies kind of elevate their HVAC business? What is it that you see? Like, where does a salesperson drop the ball most frequently? Like, what maybe like the lowest hanging fruit that like any HVAC owner could go back and go, yeah, let me go look at this and see if this is happening. Boom, we could fix that. What would you say is maybe some of that low hanging fruit for these guys?
I feel like initially the most important thing is the meet and greet, right? Because you're getting prejudged within 5 seconds of that introduction door knock. So I feel like a lot of people are dropping the ball up front. And when I say dropping the ball up front, Chris, what I'm talking about is they're allowing the homeowner to take control of the appointment. So for instance, during COVID, right? Everyone's working from home. They got Zoom meetings. They're busy, right? So what happens is the homeowner allows you to come in the house, and then all of a sudden they say, "Hey, I got to jump on a Zoom meeting. I got to do this. The unit's around back." Or they don't even let you in the house, right? They open the garage as you pull up and they go, "Hey, unit's around here. I have my gate unlocked. Go ahead and do your tune up. Let me know when you're done." Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I want every listener to understand that who's controlling the beginning of that appointment? The homeowner, the client, right? Yep. And if you're allowing them to control the beginning of the appointment, who do you think is going to control the close? The homeowner, the client, right? Yep. So in a respectful manner, how do you gain trust, control of that homeowner on the initial meet and greet, get time commitment, take control, even though they're busy, right? Yeah. Those are things that you got to teach your people, and you got to role play and put your people in those situations and put them on the spot in front of the whole team.
Yeah.
Put them in uncomfortable situations. Chris, you and I were talking about how often I put myself in uncomfortable situations, right? Being an introvert. A lot of people think that's crazy because they see me in Las Vegas on stage in front of 2,000 people, or they see my team and myself throwing massive events all through the country. And they're like, there's no way this guy gets on stage. But yeah, y'all, I'm an introvert. I got to talk myself into doing these crazy things every single day. But what I understand is that when you could put yourself in uncomfortable situations and you could succeed, right? The
Yeah.
sky's the limits of what you can do when you are comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying there, because man, it everything ends how it starts, right? And to your point, I'd never even thought about that, but yeah, I mean, it's so easy to just go, yes, you're the customer, it's your way or the highway. And I mean, I tell my clients the same thing. Just I'm like the first impression, right? Like when you think
Yeah.
about it, if somebody gets referred to your business, right? They go on Google, right? What do they see? They don't see your website. They see your Google business profile, right? And the question is that indicative of like who you are and what your business is? Then you get the call, right? Then the phone rings, right? And the question is, how are they answered there, right? So like even maybe the tech, maybe you got the appointment on the board, the tech shows up, right? Who knows what other stuff they're fighting through, right? Like maybe you got a bad reputation, but somebody still called you because they were desperate, right? And maybe they worked through your receptionist kind of being a little gruff or just being busy or ornery, right? And now you got to show up, right? Like you're saying, and you're kind of the man down. I never even thought about it, but that's a great way to look at it. So then in that case, right, like, would you say that like mindset's the most important piece, like going into that? Like, is that where you say maybe you're training most of your time and effort? Is it on the mindset, or maybe is it more on
it's mindset,
verbiage? Or
but relationship building.
okay,
A lot of people focus more on business before going into the relationship side.
sure,
I'm all about building the relationship first and then business after, right?
okay,
So what a lot of technicians fail to do is you got to put yourself in a homeowner situation, okay?
sure,
You don't know who I am.
yeah,
I'm a stranger. I just walk into your house, and then all of a sudden I walk to your thermostat, because that's what I see technicians do. And I go, hey, can you turn my thermostat, or can you turn the thermostat on to what your temperature that you like? And then they turn it on, and then they go, okay, I'm going to go start my evaluation. And then all of a sudden they leave the client, right? And then all of a sudden they start doing their airflow analysis, and they start checking the CFM in the daughter's room, who's 14 years old, 12 years old, for the son. Then they walk into the master bedroom to get up in the attic to go check the furnace, and they go in the master closet. And what do you think that homeowner is doing the whole time?
yeah, right.
They're looking over their shoulder. They're watching you. That's why you have to make sure that you create the relationship first. You talk about who you are. You talk about your accomplishments. And then you also talk about your company and what they do in the community, and how they're going to serve you to the highest level right now, and how you're going to serve them to the highest level. Because again, HVAC isn't sexy, right? It's behind the scenes. It's out of sight, out of mind. People don't do this stuff every single day like we do.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that, man. And like you're saying, it's almost like you got to put in a bunch of deposits in the bank account on the front end, because as you're walking around the house, every single time you go into a new space, it's like, oh, a little uncomfortable with that. How do they feel about it, right? And are they just building up the bank account on the wrong side of the ledger that's going to cause you to, potentially lose a sale or lose a customer or whatever, right? Like you said, everybody's being scrutinized these days. So I love that. You got to think through the whole evolution of that whole process, man. So what, maybe, and I'm obviously not asking you to share your J-Dub money making secret sauce here, but what are some of the things, like you said, talking about your accomplishments and stuff like that? How do you do that in like a non-braggadocious way? Because like the other side of this press spectrum is you don't want somebody coming in and sounding all arrogant and talking down to you, right? Like that's one of the things I've talked with Nate Adams about, right? Is like, having this sort of like peer-to-peer sort of relationship as opposed to a parent-to-child relationship, because that can put you in the opposite place of like, oh yeah, here's one more of these contractors, they know everything, right? And I'm just going to get reamed on the price tag or whatever. How do you kind of walk that middle ground?
So explain that question one more time to me.
Sure. So you know, if somebody, if you're a tech, right, and you're showing up at the door, right, how do you walk the middle ground of obviously not being sort of put in the trunk by, the homeowner themselves, right? Building that rapport and that relationship with them, but not going overstepping it and sounding like braggadocious, like you're arrogant, you know everything, and the homeowner is just this, dumb child, so to speak, that is going to bend to your will. How do you how do you kind of maybe package what you're saying? I guess I'm just
Absolutely.
genuinely interested.
So the introduction door knock, I'll go through that whole thing with you right
Okay.
now. So it's all about that initial meet and greet, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm knocking on that door frame, I'm standing back again. Everyone knows you stand back 8 to 10 feet, 45-degree angle, you shoot a wave, right? But when the homeowner answers the door and they open it up, I'm introducing myself. Hey, my name's Jason with ABC Heat and Air. It looks like my note says Bob Johnson. Do you want me to call you Mr. Bob or Mr. Johnson? So what are they going to be addressed? First or last name? Okay. Then they're going to tell me, oh, just call me Bob. All right, Bob, before I step in, it's my first time out here. I just want to make sure, is it all right where I parked my vehicle? Okay. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Y'all are probably thinking that is stupid, right? But what am I supposed to do as a sales professional, right? Get them used to saying yes. So if at the initial meet and greet, if I already know they're going to tell me yes, right? And I'm getting the yeses from them. And how many times do you get yes throughout your appointment, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. So right there, they're telling me yes. Yes, that's all right where you park. But then again, I have to explain the reason why I'm asking the question, or there's no value behind it. So after Bob tells me, yeah, Jason, that's all right. Well, Bob, the reason why I'm asking, it's my first time here. I just want to make sure I'm respecting your property. I'm going to be here for about the next hour and a half. The neighbors, the kids, the wife don't park there. You sure you don't want me to move it? No, you're right. You're good. So now I walk in and now I put on my floor savers. Some of you call them shoe covers or shoebies. Call them floor savers because shoe covers protects your shoes. Floor savers protects their floors. Okay.
Smart.
Now, when I put my floor savers on, now at this time, I'm going to ask them what prompted the appointment. Even though I already know through my CRM program, my service type, my tablet, I already know why I'm there, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, buyers are what? Buyers are liars.
Oh, yeah.
So coming from law enforcement, what I want to do is I always want to make sure that I set myself in the best possible situation. So what did they tell my dispatcher on the phone? And if y'all use Service Titan, there's a little tool on there where it records your dispatcher and you can listen to the questions so you know what prompted the appointment. So now when I'm asking the question, I'm lining it up to see if it matches to what they told my dispatcher. Okay. Yeah. Then after that, I'm asking, what is your expectations out of me today? This is very important because now you could find the roadmap of what you need to do, but then you could exceed what their expectations are. And the reason why I ask this question is because you might be the second contractor out there. You might be the third contractor out there.
Sure.
And the last guy might have been out there 15, 20, 30 minutes, wrote an estimate on a napkin, gave it to him, and he thinks that's how it is. Right? So what is your expectations out of me today? After you find out what the expectations are today, you get that time commitment. You let them know what you're going to be doing. If you're doing a service on the tune-up, explain in detail what that service looks like. Once you're done going through the introduction or the universal door knock, then you have to transition to get into the table, right? So in a professional way, how do you do that? Hey, Bob and Betty, I understand first off that y'all work really hard for your money. And I know that you got to jump on that Zoom call and it's very important because it's work-based. But if you could allow me just 5 minutes so I could ask some questions, so I could address a little bit of some concerns real quick, for I'm not guessing with your hard-earned money today, would you allow me 5 minutes and where would you like to go ahead and sit?
Nice.
And then they usually bring you to a table, right? Because now who's in control of the call? Yeah, I'm in control of the call now, right? And then I go through what we call a comfort survey. And that's what the building of the roadmap of the service call or the sales call is going to really help build.
Love it. So that's kind of like the initial part, like, being in the home and all that kind of stuff. Like once the tech gets back in the van, where do you think that most sort of drop the ball or kind of fumble it You know, like say somebody's interested, they just didn't have the time or whatever, they got to look it over, or they're going to get a second quote or whatever, right? What would you say, like the after the fact, in the follow up, where do most salespeople sort of like fall or break down, and what's usually the cause of that?
They give up too easy. They think they're going to upset a homeowner. They think they could only ask for the sale one time. And then when you get a no, you pack up and leave, right? You could ask me as a professional, okay? If I get a no, I get creative and I try to get a no 5 times. I'll ask for a sale 5 different times, being creative to do it. Now, there's different things that I talk about in my training of overcoming objections, right? There's really only truly 5 or 6 objections really that your team gets hit with every single day. So when I look at these objections, Chris, I look at it like a batter's box, right? Okay. So growing up, I played baseball. And so being a big guy, I'm 6'3", 200 pounds, I would crowd the plate. And so when I would crowd the plate, what do you think that pitcher was going to do? He's going to throw me a high inside fastball, right? He was going to try to scare me to move me outside the batter's box. The homeowners do the same thing when they throw these objections at us, right? We get inside the house, we start asking our questions, and they go, oh, we're getting multiple estimates. They start throwing these objections at you to try to move you outside the batter's box, to try to scare you, right? But what happens is when you start to practice your batting swing, what happens is I noticed that, hey, I could still keep my feet planted. All I have to do is maybe tuck my hands in a little bit, keep my elbows in, but still make connection with the ball, right? And that's what your team has to do, is they have to find out what is the toolkit of the 5 different arsenals that they have to create in order to get over, I need to think about it. I can't afford it. It costs too much. I need to talk to my spouse, right? These are objections that you all are getting every single day, and your team can't overcome them. That's the crazy thing, is you guys get them every single day and they can't overcome. Why? Because you're not continuously rehearsing it. You're not putting them on the spot, and you're not holding your team accountable. You need a coach and a team to come in to do a nice dissection and to hold your team accountable, to hold your management accountable.
Yeah. I mean, third-party accountability is so important, right? And then there's no bad guy, right? It's just, well, that's just what it is, right? It's an observed fact in that realm. So then in that case, right, like, obviously you started your training company, right? Like, what like gap did you see in the marketplace? What thing was kind of missing that you've sort of addressed in terms of how you're approaching it, and, you know, what you're sharing with, you know, HVAC owners in terms of like how to help their business, right? Because I mean, you could go just read a sales book, right, and you could kind of pull out some of these things, right? But like, what would you say is
the proof is in the pudding? That's what I would say. So let me explain that, okay? What I saw was the gap that you have all these trainers that are out there, big name trainers, right? Yeah. And everyone's willing to throw events. Everyone's willing to do classroom trainings, but no one's willing to go on site and get in the trenches and the trucks with these guys to show them what's possible, right? Like, I could sit there in front of a classroom and speak for 8 hours. I could throw events and speak all day. But truly what makes me and my team different is that we're in the trenches with the team, right? On a tech call. We're out there and we're providing revenue for you all as well on jobs that they would pack up and leave. And we're putting enough tools in our arsenal in that appointment that we're helping close those objection doors, and we're happily evolving the client at the end. And that's what I would say is what I thought the big gap was, is that when I was a comfort advisor, we talked about the numbers, right? 19,500 average ticket, closing percentage of what they are, 72 and 67%. Everyone would say, oh, your numbers are like that because you live in California, right? Well, the last 4.5 years I've been traveling, I do it in any state that I go to on sites. That's what I think makes my training so popular, is that within 3 days, we're producing anywhere between $75,000 to $120,000 in revenue on site. Yeah. So that's what I say. The proof is in the pudding, you know, and then getting the testimonials from the people that you ride along with, because they're the ones that are truly needing to tell the story, because they get to see how you operate in the house, right? And that's what really makes HVAC Masters of the Hustle way different than any other trainer out there. I don't know anyone that is willing to go in the trenches with your team every single time.
Well, I mean, understandably why, right? Like, I mean, it's easy to say you could say anything from stage, right? You get that sort of like the
Yeah.
afterglow of being the guy on the stage. Well, it's like whatever he says must be gospel, right? Or she says must be gospel, right? As opposed to like you're saying is like, okay, like I'm a very Grant Cardone of you, right? To kind of get into the trenches and just be like, all right, like,
well, he had a show, right?
Yeah.
The show where they dropped him in Pablo, Denver or Colorado or whatever, I think it was. And I say the same thing, you know, it'd be cool if we could set some guru trainers is what they say, right? And they pick random markets for us, drop us out of company and see who could produce the real results.
Yeah.
I think that would be a badass show right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And heck, anybody who's listening that's in this news media, like, I mean, gosh, you could do that in every industry, right? And you'd probably have endless content for it. So very entertaining. I mean, so Jason, you kind of answered this question already, like the difference, right? You're saying between online versus a seminar versus like a ride along versus like maybe some ongoing trade. It's just like, it's different to like see it happening in real time as opposed to, you know, just watching another video, taking some notes, trying to internalize it, but just maybe not making that connection when you're on the call. And it just takes way more iterations, right? I would imagine the learning curve on that is way slower, right? Same thing with a seminar. You can get really hyped up, really excited, right? You come back to work, different environment than that seminar room where everybody's clapping and, you know, Tony Robbins is awesome, right? So, but then like you said, if you're in the seat with somebody and you're handling the objections with them, that's a different level of instillment, I guess. I don't even know if that's a word, right?
Confidence.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what you would say is probably, you know, the biggest difference there, right? If somebody really wants to pay as much as people do pay for these seminars, these online trainings, right? It's like, why not go do something that's actually going to not just deliver results in that short time frame, but also really sort of be the catalyst for change, like permanent change, right?
Well, a lot of these companies too, you got to think, no one knew the 4-minute mile was possible till it was done, right?
Sure. Yep.
And so when the proof is in the pudding, you got to think. Some companies I go to are $2 million companies, $1 million companies, $3 million companies, $5 million companies. So they've never really had or been able to see such a caliber person to be on site to see what was possible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So now when they have a $4.5 million comfort advisor on site and now the team could see what's possible, and then I leave and now we do accountabilities and we hold them to a higher standards, it's like, wow. And it's crazy because Chris, a lot of people tell me is, what do you do with those people that sit in the classroom in the back that are like been in the trades for 30 years? You know, they're kind of like folding their arms. I would say those are the ones that I love to go right along with, because if you could change their mind day one and day two, they come back and they're like, holy crap, this dude blew me away. Everybody believes in it.
Yeah. I love that. That's a real strategic move. I think a lot of people would avoid that potential like confrontation, right? Because, you know, the older you are and, you know, having just turned 41 myself, right? It's like, I get
you
it.
Look
Like,
good.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
30.
As I always say, it's my half Korean, half Japanese wife. She's got me on a very rigorous skincare routine. So, you know, if your wife's pushing that on you, I'd say yes. But it's that idea of if you can get somebody that is so stuck in their ways and they don't do it intentionally. It's not like everybody like seeks out to be a grumpy old man or a grumpy old lady, right? Like it just happens because of the repetition of what you're doing and you just kind of get used to it, right? But to go there and say, I'm going to go, you know, shoulder to shoulder with this guy. I love that, right? Because most people be like, who's the youngest, most, you know, impressionable person here? Like, I want to go. And then, of course, you know, little Billy comes back and he's like, oh my God, it was amazing and everything. And like, you know, grumpy over there in the corner, still arms are even more folded, right?
After day one, usually I'll go to the manager, the owner, and I'll look for the guy that's usually, I want to ride with him today.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, what? You want to ride
No,
with
no,
him?
no. You
He's
should
the
do
Mr.
somebody...
Fix-It guy. Yeah. He's our fix-it. I'm like, I'm going to change his mind today.
Yeah.
There's no way, dude. We've been trying to work on him for 5 years now. Well, you haven't had me out yet.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Let's ask, I got two more questions here. So one is, where do you think most of these guys fail in the follow-up, right? It's like, is it that they're not calling enough? Are they not, is it the way they're sending their estimate? Is it, the questions that they're asking? Are they quitting? Like, I know, like you said, they quit too soon, but like, what does that look like? What are you typically seeing? Is somebody quitting after two? I mean, this is something that obviously, Devin, who connected us right over at Reignite Sales Solutions, like he's always harping on. He's like, there's so much like gold in the garbage that people are kind of quote unquote throwing out because they're just like, that lead is too old, right? What do you like? What are the parameters or what are the things that you would say, hey, get this in your mind. You should follow up X number of times. You should do it this way. Like any insight on kind of that piece of it? I know that's not an actual physical interaction, but it's still a relationship building component.
So typically people fail after following up 2 times, right? And the reason why they fail is because out of sight, out of mind, they don't track their numbers.
Right.
And when I say they don't track their numbers, I'm not talking about putting it in your CRM program, service tying, whatever, house call pros, and that track it.
Yeah.
You physically need to track your own numbers. Okay. And what I talk about that is I have a daily planner that I have, and it's broken down by hour. So if I run 3 appointments that day, I have the client's first name, their address, their phone number, what I quoted, their email, when my follow-up is with them. And I'm making sure that I'm tracking this stuff, because what I find is, Chris, I could go to a company today and ask a technician what his second call was yesterday, and they don't know.
Right.
You know why? Because out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So making sure your people are professionals and they just don't put it in the CRM program, but they also physically track their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love it. I mean, you should know your numbers, right? Like, I mean, most people don't have access to that stuff in Service Titan or Sarah or whatever anyways, right? So like you're saying, simple spreadsheet, Google Sheets, just keep it in there, right? It also keeps, like you said, top of mind, like, hey, especially if you're looking at a big number, you could be like, well, that's probably somebody worth, following up with, right? Not that you should like cherry pick and prioritize that stuff. But the reality of the situation is like, hey, that's probably, I mean, you want to make your wife happy. You want to make, you want to, buy that new car or whatever, right? Like there's goals that you have to hit and kind of focus on that. So I like that.
I'll drop a quick bomb real quick for your listeners. If, technically I say if you walk outside of a house, right, the chances of you going back inside is probably like 10%. So when you do follow up and everything, what if they're not answering the phone? How do you get them to call you back?
There you go.
So one thing that I like to do when I was in the field that I thought worked very well, and maybe they weren't answering for a week, maybe 2 weeks, I'd call them and say, hey, this is Jason. I just wanted to let you know your file came across my desk. And I just wanted to let you know my last appointment around 4:00 is actually in your neighborhood. So I'm actually going to stop by around 4:30, 5:00, just to make sure that everything's okay. I haven't heard from you all. And I just hang up and leave it like that. And typically they'll call you back because they don't want you to show up at 5:00, 4:30, And so that's typically how I would get them to call me back. But then you also have to remember and tie the emotion that you had at that appointment too. So before you leave, regardless if you happily involved them with something or you failed to do that, what is the emotion that you had there? So you ask the homeowner, hey, when choosing a contractor or when moving forward with this project, what were the 3 reasons why you chose me? And I have to pull those 3 reasons out. And the reason why is because life happens. Maybe their install is 3 days out, 4 days out. And all of a sudden it was over the weekend. They had a barbecue. Their neighbor had a system done. They went to work on Monday, found out that a coworker had it done and has a brother that's in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they lost the emotion. So they call you to cancel and there's nothing to follow back on. You always have to tie them back to the emotion of why you're out there, why they chose your company to be a part of their process.
Love it. Love it. That is a bomb. I like that maneuver because, like you said, I think that's where most people can be like, oh, well, how many times am I going to bug this guy? How many times am I going to leave a voicemail, right? And I just think to myself, right, like, our house is a new build, but we still got plumbers coming by to like fix things. Like, I pretty much never answer the phone. I call them back when I want to talk to them and when I actually need them to like get the issue done, right? So it's like, and I'm not even paying for it because it's all under warranty, right? So like, imagine if I had to pay money, right? Like, where's my impetus then? It's probably even lower, right? So I get you, man. So, well, that's awesome. Jason, I appreciate you being on. I got one last question for you as we wrap up here. I don't want to run too long, but we'll probably just have you back on the show as I get comments and feedback from our listeners here. So, what would you say? Obviously, you have your own sort of perspective and appointments, but what should somebody be looking for when they're looking to hire a sales trainer or a coach, right? Like, what are maybe like the top 3 things that the questions they should ask of the coach or the sales trainer, just to make sure that they're finding somebody? And then I guess I got to tack another question on: when would somebody identify themselves as like, hey, this is a time where I need an actual person to come in and kind of, change things around. Like, maybe there's instances where obviously the obvious one is like, I want more revenue, right? Like, that's a clear one, but like maybe where there's something else going on that you've maybe seen that maybe is a silent killer or something along those lines that you think would be helpful for somebody listening to kind of ferret out in their own business and be able to move in 2024 to a bigger goal.
Yeah. So when looking for a business owner, answer the first question, or not a business owner, but a trainer, morals, ethics, values, right?
Love it.
That comes first and foremost, making sure that they fit your culture, your mission, your vision. And then testimonials. Look at their numbers. What have they been able to produce at other companies by doing ride-alongs? Are they willing to not just give you testimonials, but give you other owners, business owners, operators' phone numbers so they could have one-on-one conversations as well? And that's something that we pride ourselves at HVAC Masters of the Hustle is I have thousands of people that I could call right now and give allowed testimonials for myself just because the value that they see of having us come out or doing online trainings or whatever it is. And so that's what I would say when choosing a trainer, make sure that they fit your culture, your morals, your ethics, and your values. Extremely important. And then making sure that it's the right fit for you and your team. Going over testimonials, going over what they've been able to produce at other companies with on-sites. And then to answer your second question is, all I really got to say is dream big, as a business owner. And when you think you're dreaming big, dream even bigger. 5 years ago, when I started this podcast, when I started this journey, I would have never fathomed in a million years that I would be on the road 175 days, that people would be paying us, my team, to create something to come out. I mean, it's a big investment for an annual training from our company. It's a $200,000 investment.
Yeah.
Right. So people are paying high dollars and the results that they see are through the roof. So, I'm going to end the podcast by saying it's not just me that's doing this. It's also the good Lord above. I'm very faith driven. That's what I have right here. And once I really understood my purpose, my drive and what I'm supposed to do is to create a bigger impact and also create awareness for adoption. Because my wife and I adopted all 3 of our children.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's the bigger picture is how do you drive awareness to show that these kids need love and that they're in the system and everything like that. So that's what it is, man, is faith driven, believe, dream big, understand consistency is key and go after it.
Amen to that. I think that's we're coming full circle because the whole sort of intro to the podcast is just like realizing and we as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have such a thankless job. Like, rarely do people turn around and go, thank you, right? Maybe they thank, one of the people that's, customer facing, but rarely is it us at the helm that they're thanking, right? So like, it's hard day in and day out to kind of trudge through it. But, to your point, if you feel like you're called to a higher purpose and you're driven by, something greater than yourself, like you really can do big things. And every decision that you're making is impacting, it has a ripple effect. First it's your employees and then it's the community community. And beyond that, I mean, the bigger you dream, like obviously the bigger that reach is. So I love that. Jada, where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you? What's the best way to kind of ring your bell, so to speak?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, HVAC Masters of the Hustle, Facebook, Jason Walker, or HVAC Masters of the Hustle group as well. We have, I think, 6,000 people that are part of that group.
Nice.
If you guys want to email me, jdub@hvacmastersofthehustle.com. I'm an open book. If you guys want to do a roadmap, reach out to me complimentary. I'll set up an hour roadmap for you all for 2024 to make sure that you guys are in the right direction. And that's my gift to you and all your listeners.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. That's awesome, guys. I wouldn't hesitate to take them up on that. Well, that's great. Thank you so much again, J-Dub, for being online. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe. I know it's a big ask, but writing a review on the podcast is a huge, huge implication because it just allows us to get out to more HVAC business owners. Again, this is by referral only, so any of the podcasts guests that you see has been referred here. So in my way, they've been vouched for, and somebody is going to have to answer if they drop bombs that are a negative impact as opposed to the positive dropping bombs that J-Dub was doing today. So I got to get me one of those things, man. That's awesome. So we so appreciate you guys plugging in, listening. Please don't forget to share the podcast with other HVAC owners so that we can build and improve our industry overall as a whole. My goal with this podcast is that the biggest hurdle to entry into our industry is the level of professionalism with which we all conduct ourselves. So please pay it forward, pass it on, and we will see you on the next one.